Ladies and gentlemen, I have the privilege to sit with Jair Netanjahu, who himself is a well-known figure in Israeli public life, in international public life. He's a radio host, is a podcast host of the Jair Netanjahu show. He's also the son of the current Prime Minister of the State of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. Yair Netanyahu, welcome to Budapest.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So Yair, what brings you to Budapest?
I was invited by MCC for an event debating the modern form of anti-Semitism, especially in the West, this new form of anti-Semitism based on radical Islam and new woke progressive agendas that are anti-Western and Judeo-Christian civilization, and it all comes together for singling out the only Jewish state in the world and questioning the right for the only Jewish state in the world to exist. So that was a very successful event, and I'm thanking also MCC for inviting me.
What do you think the world doesn't get about this war? Why do you think, while Israel is obviously is an obvious victim of the war, Israel has been brutally attacked, viciously attacked. Over 1,200 people have been killed. We tend to talk less about the fact that there's been a barrage of rockets, of 8,000 rockets within an hour, showering on Israel, causing incredible damage. There's been over 200 people kidnapped, 240 Israeli citizens kidnapped. For a mere few days, perhaps only a few hours, Israel was, in the eyes of the world, the victim and the underdog. And that narrative changed quite rapidly, as it was expected. And the world doesn't seem to get what's happening, and blaming Israel for retaliation of unproportionality, let's say. Why do you think that the world, what's the mistake that the world is making in judging this whole situation? How the war started, what triggered the war, and where this conflict is going?
Yeah, this is not two equal sides. This is one country, which is a Western democracy, a liberal country, been unprovoked attacked by a terror organization that control a de facto country in Gaza, terror organization that is, invaded Israel and did mass raping of Israeli women, killing deliberately babies and children and elderly, taking babies and children and women and elderly hostages back into Gaza. So this is not this is the same case as America being attacked on 9/11 by Al-Qaeda, and people now supporting the Palestinians is like with people with support Al-Qaeda and Taliban for 9/11. Nobody was surprised and nobody condemned the United States for responding to 9/11 and launching its attack on Afghanistan for hosting Al-Qaeda terrorists and bin Laden. It was expected, it was approved by the international community, while for some reason Israel doesn't receive the same treatment, although it's the same case exactly. Democracy being attacked by a brutal terror organization. Talking about proportionality, Douglas Murray spoke very eloquently in British television and said, what exactly is proportionality? 1,400 Israeli women have been killed after being raped. Does the Israeli army need to go into Gaza and rape and kill the exact amount of women and behead the exact amount of babies as the Hamász beheaded Jewish babies?
That would be an eye for an eye in a literal sense.
This is ridiculous, of course. There's more civilian casualties in Gaza, not because Israel targets Israel trying to make its best to avoid civilian casualties, but the terrorists in Gaza are embedding themselves in civilian population, which is the densest in the world. They're shooting rockets on Israeli towns, on Israeli civilians, from schools, from hospital, by doing so, doing a double war crime for targeting Israeli civilians while hiding from their own civilians. They do it in purpose, so they want as many Israeli civilians dead and as many as Palestinian civilians dead as well, so the world will pressure Israel. Israel does its best to avoid casualties, but if you play these number games, you would think, going back to World War II, that the Germans, the Nazi Germany, was the good guys, and Britain and America were the bad guys, because far more German civilians died by American and British attacks than British and American civilians died from German attacks. But it doesn't work this way, because, you know,
and also, no war would be ever won if both of the
Nobody,
combating powers
the,
would be in the same proportion.
There was a big amount of innocent civilians killed in Afghanistan and Iraq by NATO forces, by America and Britain and the Western countries. Nobody say that they're the bad guys in Afghanistan and you know, and the Taliban were the good guys, because, you know, this is the reality of war, a modern war that's being carried out by a terrorist organization from within dense civilian population. And I think people that are putting Israel in a different standards than any other country, including any other Western country, are doing so only from anti-Semitism. Because if you put a Jewish state on a different standards than any other state, and say that this is the only country in the world that's not allowed to defend itself against terrorism and not allowed to win a war, then it's just anti-Semitism in a politically correct way.
What's the the Jewish people, the state of Israel, while winning all the wars, thank God, we never won the propaganda war. We hardly ever did win a propaganda war, and we seem to be losing. We seem to lose it on as we speak. So, what do you think we should do differently to get the world to understand the truth?
Well, it's uneven war because there is around 15 million Jews in the world, and there's 1.5 billion Muslim in the world that automatically siding with the Palestinians. So it's a little bit hard playing this number games. You know, we're just a smaller nation, and we don't have a coalition of Jewish countries like the Arab have 22 countries, and the Islamic world have 50 countries with a lot of oil. You have a very negative actor called Qatar that has a lot of money and spreading anti-Semitic propaganda through their main propaganda channel, Al Jazeera, and through funding American and Western universities and spreading anti-Semitic rhetoric in those universities, as we just now saw in the United States. So
you don't seem to be too optimistic about the situation being changed.
The purpose of Israel is not to win a propaganda war or not. The purpose of Israel as a Jewish state is to have a sovereign country that care about the Jewish people and protect the Jewish people, and not being dependent on other countries. Because we saw what happened 70 years ago when we didn't have a country, and it was the Holocaust, and nobody lifted a finger to help the Jewish people. Nobody cared. So, you know, I'm optimistic in the way that now we have a country and we have a strong army that protect us, and we don't need favors from other countries.
Do you think Israel could not care about the world's opinion, in terms of? I mean, Israel is reliant on the United States, of course, both financially and both militarily.
It's always important to show your case and to speak up for truth and justice, but I don't think we're dependent on it, you know, and we should do the best we can in this perspective, but, you know, it is what it is.
So regarding education, perhaps is the long-term solution to ever solve this problem, if it ever is or can be solved. Where would you start teaching Israeli history? Would you start in 1948 when the country was founded? Would you start at the First Zionist Congress? Or would you just go back even further to say or to state the legitimacy of the State of Israel?
Well, first of all,
as a Jewish country, of course.
Oranges was this time of the Bible, you know, King David, King Solomon, the Kingdom of Judea, the Kingdom of Israel, fast forwarding to the Roman time, to the province of Judea, where Jesus Christ was born and raised in the province of Judea, and fast forwarding to modern time, and going back to modern time, the land of Israel was ruled for 400 years by the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Empire, and it was not even not only it was not a country of its own, Palestine, it wasn't even a county,
like a province,
a province of its own in the Turkish Empire. It was part of the Syrian province with the capital in Damascus, and the land was pretty empty and desolate, according to every European and American traveler,
including the famous Mark Twain, for instance.
That's right. Mark Twain, famous American author, visited the Holy Land in the middle of the 19th century, described a completely empty and desolate land. So, and he didn't have any agenda. It was, he was not Jewish, and the status of the land changed from Turkish to British after the end of the First World War, when Turkey officially ceded the rights to the land of Israel to the British Empire, and the British received the mandate of Palestine from the League of Nations, which is the organization that preceded the United Nations. They named it Palestine after the ancient Roman name. The Romans named it Palestine after the Bar Kokhba revolt in the 2nd century as a punishment to the Jews, naming it after their ancient nemesis, which is the Philistines, that have nothing to do with the current Palestinians. They were of Greek origins, and they didn't exist even at the time of the Romans. As far back at the time of the Romans, they already ceased to exist. They disappeared from the pages of history around 500 years prior to the Roman Empire. So it was just the geographical name of the land, like you would say Eastern Europe or Scandinavia or Balkan. It didn't have any connotation as Muslim or Arab. It's just just the Roman name of the land. Anyway, the British got the international recognition of holding the land temporarily, in condition of giving it one day to the natives, as the mandate system worked. And the natives
You're referring to the mandate system that was set up in the San Remo Conference after the First World War.
The San Remo Conference in
1920.
The winning powers of World War I were meeting in San Remo and redistributing the European arena and the Middle East arena. And Britain got the rights of Palestine, and it was written that the natives that's supposed to inherit the mandate and create their own country when times be is the Jewish state, adopting the Balfour Declaration from a few years before, stating that the Jewish people are the rightful heirs of the land of the Holy Land, the mandate of Palestine, which in modern days includes Israel, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, Gaza, and even the Kingdom of Jordan. Actually, as part of the peace treaty between Israel and Jordan in the 1990s, the Jordanians knew about this information, and part of the peace deal was Israel ceding the rights of east of the Jordan River, giving up its legal rights east of the Jordan River. So the Arabs do know about that and the legal rights of the Jews, at least after the 1990s, to the west of the Jordan River, which is tiny, by the way. The whole land, including the West Bank and Gaza, is about the size of New Jersey. It's tiny.
Yeah, it's 1/3 of the size of Hungary,
yes.
for instance. So, and Hungary is not a large country either.
Yeah.
So, do you think? So the world has seemed to have lost focus on this. Historical facts. This is not something that requires a lot of research. I mean, you go to any Wikipedia page and we'll tell you that the United Nations resolution of 1947 did not have an obligation. It was merely a recommendation to create a Jewish state and an Arab state, where an Arab state was already created some 17 years prior. 25 years prior.
The land was already split between Jews and Arabs, and had the two-state solution by the creation of Jordan, east of which was part of the British original mandate of Palestine, Transjordan, which is 70% of the land east of the Jordan River. About 80% of the people in Jordan describe themselves as Palestinian, identify as Palestinian, and their flag is identical, the Palestinian and Jordanian flag, you know. The status of the land never changed legally because, again, the British mandate to Palestine, the giving the rights of Israel, the land of Israel to the Jewish people, was ratified in the British Parliament, the American Congress, and in the League of Nations. And when the United Nations was created, it automatically inherited all the mandates, all the mandates of the League of Nations agreements. So it's part of the UN Charter actually as well, which is ironic considering the behavior of the United Nations. Now, what separates Israel and the West Bank, for example, the Green Line, has never been recognized as an international border. The same with the line that separates Israel and Gaza. When Israel was created in 1948, the Kingdom of Jordan invaded Israel, the newly born state, and managed to occupy what today we call the West Bank. The Jordanian called it the West Bank because they're coming from the East Bank. For them, everything to the west of it is the West Bank. And Gaza was invaded and occupied by Egypt. Now, after the war ended in 1949, Israel approached Jordan and Egypt, asking them to make the new line as an official international border. And Egypt and Jordan refused because they did not recognize Israel as a legitimate state. So the line was never more than a temporary ceasefire line with no implication of international law. And in 1967, Israel retook it. And so, you know, the status never changed to, you know, when, for example, when Jordan annexed the West Bank in the 1950s or 60s, I'm not sure if it was the 50s or 60s, no country in the world recognized this except of Pakistan, I think. And the Arabs controlled 100% of the West Bank and Gaza from 1948 to 1967. They never created a Palestinian state. On the contrary, as I said, Jordan annexed the West Bank. The PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization, was created by the Soviet in 1964, 3 years before Israel took over the West Bank and Gaza. That's because the Palestine they wanted to liberate was not the West Bank or Gaza, it was Tel Aviv, Jaffa, Haifa, you know, the core of Israel. The annihilation of Israel.
Well, PLO's original flag included Israel proper, the core part of the country as well. Yeah. So, two last questions I have for you, and then I'll let you go. Question number one: how do you see the end of this conflict? Do you see any sort of peaceful settlement, albeit not entirely peaceful, like peaceful by the edge of the sword, let's say, or by weapons? And how far ahead do you see this? Meaning, how long the war do you think will go on, or in what terms of like in what kind of heat, or will it be a little bit on a lower heat? That would be my first question.
So this is not really Israel-Hamas war. This is Israel-Iran war. Iran is a rogue state that has the same ideology of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and they're building a nuclear weapon, which is a huge threat for world stability and peace. They are destabilizing the Middle East through their proxies, which is in Gaza, Hamas, in Lebanon, Hezbollah, in Yemen, the Houthis, and they have the proxies also in Iraq and Syria. They are a huge threat not only for Israel well-being, but also for America, Europe, and Arab countries. And it's all about whether Iran will be contained and pressured and sanctioned. And the more pressure on Iran, especially from the United States and Europe, the more chances for peaceful Middle East. The less pressure on them and less sanctions, giving them more money to fund their terrorist proxies, the more chances of an out war in the Middle East.
And finally, how do you see? So first of all, you're visiting Budapest. I understand that there's You have a Hungarian rabbi also here in Hungary, somebody that you're very close with, Rabbi Orechman, if I'm not mistaken. How do you see Hungary's role in the international stage regarding Israel? Hungary has vetoed every resolution against the state of Israel, whether it be in the United Nations or in the EU. I would say Israel has no better friend in Europe currently than Hungary. Does Israel value this friendship? What sort of importance does Israel give to this friendship?
As you just said, Hungary is a tremendous friend and ally of Israel, and it's the only country that always veto anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli resolutions in the EU. Sometimes there's other countries, but Hungary is always there. And Israeli people in Israel, the whole of Israel, appreciate this friendship and this loyalty. And I hope that the relationships which are great, will get even better and closer as time goes.
Jair Netanjahu, thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your stay. And wish you peace and good health. And as we say in Israel, Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people should live and live forever.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.